Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
Well, you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Testicle tanning.
They say, that's amazing. How did you do that?
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Friday. TGIF. Welcome to the show. Boy, do we have a lot of stuff for you today. It's a content day. Big day. Lots of stuff happening. Lots of stuff we're going to talk about, including Kevin McCarthy. We got some tapes. We got plenty of tapes. We got so many tapes. The greatest tapes, the best tapes, tremendous tapes. In fact, talking about tremendous, we have Donald Trump bragging about passing a dementia test. Again, that's right. We have Mark Meadows. More news on that. That's fun. Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm going to be covering some of the highlights today. So lots of stuff, including her inability to answer any questions, like at all. So we've got that. Yes, massive content. Also, there could be massive dumps.
Big, massive dumps.
You don't know. You don't know. We're going to do that. Speaking of dumps, we also have the so-called king of masculinity getting busted for, well, I'm sorry, king of toxic masculinity getting caught being toxic. You're going to enjoy that. So lots of fun, lots of disaster, should be great.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some tapes. Now, these tapes, of course, refer to Kevin McCarthy. Now, following the report in the New York Times, which alleged that both McCarthy and Mitch McConnell were plotting against Donald Trump, McCarthy issued a very, very strong denial, the strongest denials of ever. Now, before I show you that, of course, I want to show you some context here of what's going on. And by the way, these are receipts from the New York Times pushing back against Kevin McCarthy's denial. Now, the Times, for example, had reported, and I talked about this yesterday, Alexander Burns and Jonathan Martin. Now, that report from them was based on passages from their new book, This Will Not Pass, which, of course, makes me think of Lord of the Rings. You shall not pass, before taking on the Balrog. All right, so anyway. Now, in that book, McConnell thought that the Democrats would be able to successfully remove Donald Trump via impeachment. Here's what he said. The Democrats are going to take care of the son of a bitch for us. Oh, really? Is that what's going on? How? The Democrats needed a substantial number of Republican votes in order to successfully remove a sitting president. Now, those votes were not delivered by Mitch McConnell. And so he's supposed to do that, you see. And look, it's not just because of his cowardice. Look, Mitch McConnell, of course, he is a coward. And also it turns out he's not as smart as we gave him credit for. I know. Because he actually believed that the Democrats were strong enough to remove Donald Trump. Anybody who knows the Democrats knows that they're not very strong. They're not very good at doing things, not good at getting things done or fighting for the things they say they believe in. And so, look, you only need to look at Merrick Garland. You only need to look at what happened with Build Back Better and the parliamentarian, $15 minimum wage, all that stuff. But they said, oh, we're going to hold Donald Trump accountable. We're going to hold Donald Trump accountable. Well, you can't unless you had Republican votes, which you knew you're not going to get. So now, that said, as for House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, now the report said that he had planned to call on Trump to resign following the Capitol riots. So now, this is right after, and understand the context here, okay? Kevin McCarthy and other congressmen had been fearing for their lives on January 6th. In the chamber. Remember, the mob had broke in and they were chanting, "Hang a Mike Pence." And they were also planning on going after Nancy Pelosi, going after other Democrats, and again, Republicans. It was a violent mob. So now, obviously, these Republicans were incredibly scared at the time, and now afterwards, like, oh, no, we weren't scared at all. No, of course not. They were just tourists. That was it. Nothing wrong with that. No. And so, look, at the time, there was a conversation between McCarthy and Trump. Here's what he said, and this had been reported before. Trump had replied to this anger from McCarthy by saying, well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are. Oh, really? To which McCarthy responded, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Now, later on, of course, came the ass kissing. So much ass kissing, so much groveling from Kevin McCarthy, begging Donald Trump for forgiveness. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I said that you had a little bit of tiny little crumb of responsibility for what happened on January 6th. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Now, days after that, according to a report, McCarthy had told other Republican leaders, quote unquote, I had it with this guy. But weeks later, as I said before, he was back at Mar-a-Lago kissing Trump's boot or whatever else. And so that's why he's denying this report in some very strong terms, In a statement, McCarthy called the report, quote, totally false and wrong. And a spokesperson told the Times that McCarthy never said he'd called Trump to say he should resign. Now, here's where the audio comes into play. You see, this has already been all reported, but here's McCarthy. I just read you his denial, very strong denial. But the Times, they showed up and they had receipts. Here they are.
I guess there's a question when we were talking about the 25th Amendment resolution. And you asked if what happens if it gets there after he's gone. Is there any chance? Are you hearing that he might resign? Is there any reason to think that might happen?
I've had some few discussions. My gut tells me no. I'm seriously thinking of having that conversation with him tonight. I haven't talked to him in a couple days. From what I know of him, I mean, you guys all know him too. Do you think he'd ever back away? But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call him. This is what I think. know it'll pass the House. I think there's a chance it'll pass the Senate even when he's gone. And I think there's a lot of different ramifications for that. Now, I haven't had a discussion with the Dems that if he did resign, would it not happen? Now, this is one personal fear I have. I do not want to get into any conversations about Pence partying, anything like that. I mean, the only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation we should resign. I mean, that would be my take, but I don't think he would take it, but I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, you know, there it is. Donald Trump, of course, didn't resign. Republicans cowered, as they always do, to a bigger authority figure on the right. And McConnell, of course, kissed his ass. Bent down, bent the knee, kissed the ring, kissed his ass, took the boot into his mouth, then filleted the boot. That's what they do, right? That's what they do when daddy shows up, all right? And the reason, of course, they did that is because Republicans are obsessed with their own power. They really are. They didn't turn on Trump in the end because the base loves Donald Trump. And of course, the Republicans in the Congress, they want to get voted back in. They want to win their elections. And that's it. These are not only cowardly people, but are people that are obsessed with making sure they come out on top no matter what happens. And it doesn't matter whose ass they got to kiss to do it, they're going to do it. Simple as that. All right. And yes, there is calls for McCarthy to step down. I don't know what's going to happen on that. But, you know, we're going to have to see. To expect a Republican to show any sort of backbone, inconceivable. Inconceivable. They'll fold like a cheap suit. All right. Moving on. All right. Former President Donald Trump is still bragging about the results of the test that he passed to prove that he doesn't have dementia.
They actually, were they thinking about an Article 25 when I said that, right? They don't think about it now. The 25th Amendment, they don't think about that now at all, right? They never mentioned the 25th, but they would mention anytime I had a great idea, 25th Amendment, there's something wrong with it. That's why I took the aptitude test and I aced it, according to Doc Ronnie and a whole group of doctors. I aced that aptitude test. And that's a test that even some geniuses in this room will not do that well on, I will tell you. It's not that easy a test. They show the first one or two questions, they're pretty easy, Sean. You know, the first ones. When you get up to question number 28 and 29 and 30, you got to be okay. Believe me.
There's even geniuses in the room that would not do well on that dementia test. That's not an aptitude test. It's to make sure that you're there mentally. Oh my God. It's not an easy test. You know what I had to do? I had to remember person, woman, man, camera, TV in that order. I had to. I didn't have a choice, you know, because
Cognitively there.
I'm cognitively there. You know it, person, woman, man, camera, TV. Wow. Now, look, the test that he took is called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment and is meant to detect signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, and other brain conditions. That would make sure that would, you know, to find out if you are fit to serve as president. That is not something to brag about. And yet, of course, he brags about it because he doesn't understand. All right, anyway, Look, it's not the first time he bragged about this. I'm going to go back to what he was saying about this in 2020, just for funsies.
I said, is there some kind of a test, an acuity test? And he said there actually is, and he named it, whatever it might be. And it was 30 or 35 questions. The first questions are very easy. The last questions are much more difficult, like a memory question. It's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. And then 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, they say, remember the first question? Not the first, but the 10th question? Give us that again. Can you do that again? And you go person, woman, man, camera, TV. If you get it in order, you get extra points. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy. And that's not an easy question. In other words, they ask it to you, they give you 5 names and you have to repeat them, and that's okay. If you repeat them out of order, it's okay, but you know, it's not as good. But then when you go back about 20, 25 minutes later and they say, go back to that question, they don't tell you this, go back to that question and repeat them. Can you do it? And you go, person, woman, man, camera, TV. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that? I do it because I have like a good memory, because I'm cognitively there.
Oh my God. That just, I still can't. After all this time, person, woman, man, camera, TV. Nobody could do that though. It's a very difficult question. Very hard question. Nobody can get it. Nope. Very few people. And you know how I can get it? It's because I'm cognitively there. I'm just cognitively there. No, congratulations. You do not have dementia. Somehow. But look, I think watching that, I'm still convinced that there has to be something wrong with his brain. And it has to be. My God, man. Oh my God.
They say, that's amazing. How did you do that?
How did you do that? How did you do that? Oh my God. All right. So, but look, they say he's not impaired, but you also can't make the argument that he's fit to serve. I'm just saying. Look, now here's the thing. So the reason that I'm bringing this up, not just to make fun of Trump, even though I'm making fun of Trump, there's this consistent attack on President Biden. Now, look, I've said on President Biden, he certainly is not as sharp as he used to be. And he does have those moments where he Bidens out. And that is a little concerning. At the same time, I don't think he's nearly at the level of cognitively impaired. He definitely shows his age. But when you're talking about cognitively impaired, well, the person that I would actually be worried about more, even more so than Donald Trump, which again, that's pretty bad. And this is actually coming from a good place, Dianne Feinstein. Now, Dianne Feinstein's a Democrat and she's 88 years old. And so if you want to look at somebody who has real cognitive impairment that interferes with being able to do her job, well, I mean, that's a good example. The San Francisco Chronicle reports that she is sometimes unable to recognize longstanding colleagues or keep up with arguments in the chamber, according to staff and colleagues. In one recent conversation with another lawmaker, Feinstein, 88, repeated the same small talk questions with no apparent recognition. The two had already had a similar conversation. So look, 4 U.S. senators, including 3 Democrats, as well as 3 former Feinstein staffers, and the California Democratic member of Congress told him that her memory is rapidly deteriorating and that she can no longer fulfill her job duties without her staff doing much of the work required to represent the nearly 40 million people of California. So that is a really concerning development here going on. And unfortunately, a lot of people are ignoring this. Even the people that, pick on Trump for being, mentally declining, which, again, I said that there's definitely something wrong mentally with Donald Trump. Massively something wrong. But here you have Dianne Feinstein that is also massively going through decline. And again, I feel bad pointing it out. And of course, I'll get attacked for pointing it out. But this is a real issue. The people of California deserve representation that is there 100%. Now, again, the sources do say that on good days, Feinstein is nearly as sharp as she used to be, and that the Chronicle pointed out that she performed very well during the confirmation hearings for Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. And so understand that that's kind of how it works. You have good days and you have bad days. But understand, as this goes on, there's going to start being more bad days than good. And yet Feinstein is planning on running again. She's not stepping down. And so that gets to be a bit of a problem. Now, look, all these politicians are pretty old, okay? Donald Trump's in his 70s. Feinstein is almost 90 years old. Biden is going to be in his 80s in 2024. We do need younger people, so we don't have to worry about whether or not they're declining or not. Now, look, and some of you are going to get mad at me when it comes to this. Bernie Sanders, I get worried about him too. Not the fact that he's declining. Bernie Sanders is as sharp as ever. You just listen to him, he's on it. But he is getting older. And the reason I bring him up is that he didn't rule out a run for 2024. Now, if that happens, of course I'll support him. Yes, Bernie bro, like I'm down with him, right? I'll definitely support him, and I don't just mean support him. I will enthusiastically support him. But homeboy's in his 80s. I do wish he was younger. Oh my God, can you imagine prime Bernie is 40s and 50s? Oh. But look, that said, Bernie, Trump, yes, even Trump obviously would pass that cognitive test. I don't know about Feinstein. I just don't know. And so, look, going back to Trump here, this is not an accomplishment. This is just to show that you are fit for office. So please, stop bragging about being barely competent, you weirdo. Bernie at 50 would have been awesome. Oh my God, Bernie at 50 was awesome. And Bernie still is awesome. I just wish he could be around like longer and, filled with even more energy. Because you think he's got energy now, and he does. Oh, younger Bernie would have been even better. All right, let's go to Mark Meadows. I don't like age limits. It solves one problem but creates others. It's not so much an age limit. It's more of like a, can you perform? And how long, again, how long can we reasonably expect somebody to last in office when they're all extremely old? And I think that is a legitimate concern. Okay. But anyway, how did he keep that pace during his campaign with a crap diet before he changed it? I don't know who you're referring to. But anyway, let's move on to Mark Meadows before we get to sidetracked and stunlocked. I hereby advocate for the funding of Cyborg Bernie. Yes, Cyborg Bernie, and get on a Gundam. We can build him. We have the technology. We have the money. Okay. All right. Anyway. Former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has made a lot of noise about voter fraud and has talked a lot about voter integrity in the context of the 2020 election. So now he, of course, had amplified Donald Trump's claim that Biden had stolen the election with no evidence. Once again, saying that he was the victim of mass voter fraud. There's so much voter fraud. The fraud, it's everywhere. He even joined a group after leaving the White House that promotes election integrity. And yet, speaking of integrity, well, it turns out that he has registered to vote not in just one, not two, but 3 different states at the same time. Oops. After exiting the White House, Meadows took a position as a senior partner at the Conservative Partnership Institute, which promotes election integrity efforts, and gave a speech at CPI's Election Integrity Summit in Atlanta on February 19th. Just 3 weeks later, according to records obtained by the Washington Post, Meadows and his wife Deborah submitted registrations to vote in North Carolina, all while being registered to vote both in Virginia and South Carolina. The overlap lasted about 3 weeks, according to the Washington Post, and it might have continued if revelations about Meadows' voting record had not attracted scrutiny in North Carolina. Meadows is still registered in Virginia and South Carolina. He and his wife no longer are registered to vote in North Carolina. Now, as I mentioned, Meadows was the keynote speaker at the CPI Election Integrity Summit in Atlanta. Here's what he said, quote, "What you're doing is investing in the future of our country and making sure only legal votes count." Meadows told attendees he said he had just gotten off the phone with Trump, who he said had told him, "We cannot give up on election integrity." So we're talking about election integrity, right? That's what we're talking about here. So now, about 3 weeks after that speech, the New Yorker reported that Meadows had registered to vote at a home where he did not reside. Well, that doesn't seem to be a hallmark of integrity. Registering to vote at a place that you don't even live and have never even visited. Well, that seems like voter fraud to me. Weird. Let's see. The magazine reports that on September 19th, about 3 weeks before North Carolina's voter registration deadline for the general election, Meadows filed his paperwork. On a line that asked for his residential address, where you physically live, he actually put an address of a 14 by 62 foot mobile home in Scaly Mountain. He listed his move-in date for the address as the following day. Meadows does not own this property and never has. It is not clear that he has ever even spent a single night there. And then he had voted based on that address in the 2020 election via, what was it? Absentee ballot. Weird. Huh. That's very strange. Now, the New Yorker also reported the previous owner, who they caught up with, who asked it, we keep her name anonymous, now lives in Florida, and said that was just a summer home. She said she and her husband bought it back in 1985. Quote, "We'd come up there for 3 to 4 months when my husband was living. Her husband died several years ago, and the house sat mostly unused for some time afterwards because she had nobody to go up with there anymore." So that's kind of sad, really. But weird that Mark Meadows then got that address and decided to claim that he lived there and then requested an absentee ballot while claiming to live there. Weird. So now, as far as the overlap in the voter rolls. So now there's another component to it, right? So it's actually not unusual for voter rolls to overlap as people move. And Mark Meadows had moved. Okay. Now, let's see. So what most people, when they move, they generally don't bother to terminate their voter registrations when they move. But Meadows and CPI are apparently very concerned about people not terminating those registrations. Very interesting. In fact, the organization's Citizen Guide, which apparently he did not read, urges activists to determine that the registrations of their neighbors are legal by checking on whether voters have moved or if the registrations are P.O. boxes, commercial addresses, or vacant lots. And then obtaining evidence, photos of commercial buildings, vacant lots, and securing affidavits from current residents that a registered voter has moved. So Mark Meadows is a hypocrite. Oh, I mean, of course, right? Not following the organization, the guidelines of the organization that he now works for. But honestly, that's pretty expected as Republicans. You don't really find that surprised. Okay. All right. Yeah. Not surprising at all. Also not surprising that he is under investigation for voter fraud, which is interesting. Now, the state cited the fact that Meadows had voted in Virginia during the 2021 gubernatorial election that elected Republican Glenn Youngkin. Meadows and his wife had registered to vote in the state in September. His and her voter registration applications show, even though they were still registered to vote in North Carolina. It's always funny when you find them breaking their own rules. I mean, it really shows you how little they actually care about voter integrity. And really, when it comes down to it, they really care mostly about how to prevent black people from voting. Generally. Because at the end of the day, not just black people, but black people, students, the elderly, disabled, people that are more likely or considered to be more likely to vote for Democrats are the very people that they try to discourage from voting by making, of course, it more difficult to vote. Not impossible, but difficult. Encouraging long lines, closing polling places, enacting things like voter ID, which again make you go through extra steps, so it's more annoying to vote, and also difficult for people who don't have reliable transportation and things like that. I love the argument that right-wingers use. It's like, oh, you think black people are just stupid to go out and register to vote? No, it's an issue of resources. Do they have vehicles? Can they get time off work to go and get that voter registration? Are there ways to get voter registration easier in their states, or have those been blocked? Things like that. And so those are considerations that Republicans conveniently ignore, and they do so on purpose, because at the end of the day, Paul Weyrich put it best when he said, I don't want everyone to vote. Because quite candidly, our success in the elections goes down as the voting populace goes up. Meaning they know that if more people vote, they don't win. Simple as that. All right. Let's go to Marjorie Taylor Greene. We did that already? We are just blowing right through these stories. All right. The case to get Marjorie Taylor Greene removed from the ballot in Georgia has begun. Now, this is part of a lawsuit brought by some Georgia voters, some constituents of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who want her disqualified from office under the 14th Amendment. Now, the 14th Amendment, of course, will bar anyone who engaged in an insurrection or rebellion from running for federal office. Now, of course, that refers to January 6th and her support of the Capitol riots. So now the case is going to focus on a lot of the things that she has said or tweeted that could be potentially, encourage people to commit violence in order to stop the certification of the election, which certainly was one of the goals for the Capitol rioters. So I'm going to show you some videos here. First off is Ron Fine. And actually, in this segment, we're going to show you both of those videos from him. And he is the lawyer for the 5 individuals suing to keep Greene off the ballot. And he's going to start by laying the foundation of the case in his opening statements. Take a look.
Your Honor, this is a solemn occasion. This is not politics. This is not theater. This is a serious case that the voters who we represent have brought in order to offer proof that their United States representative seeking re-election, Marjorie Taylor Greene, having taken the oath to support the Constitution, then broke that oath and engaged in insurrection. And in order to understand that case, it's important to set the stage with some history. There have been past insurrections in this country, and we're going to hear about some of them. The most important of which was the Civil War, or as it was called at the time, the insurrection. The Civil War involved states raising armies. They equipped them with uniforms, insignia, state-of-the-art military equipment. They marched in columns. They occupied huge tracts of land. That is not the only type of insurrection that this country has seen. Those include Shays Rebellion, also known as Shays Insurrection, and the Whiskey Rebellion. These insurrections were of a different character. They were not quite as organized as the Civil War. The foot soldiers of those insurrections didn't march in armies. They didn't conquer vast swaths of territory, and they certainly didn't wear uniforms. That is the kind of insurrection that occurred on January 6th. This was not a case where the leaders were on horseback leading the charge. Rather, the leaders of this insurrection, of whom there were a number, were among us, on Facebook, on Twitter, on corners of social media that would make your stomach curl. The evidence will show that Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of them.
All right, so look, there's a lot of context in there. Obviously, a lot of stuff comparing him to the different insurrections that had happened in this country. And I think that's really good context here. Now, a lot of us watching this, obviously, we know it's an insurrection. They tried to block the peaceful transfer of power. They threatened to hang the vice president. They rushed the barricades. They smashed windows, smeared feces, fought police officers. Many of them had weapons, not guns, but rudimentary weapons, poles, flagpoles that they have used as weapons. Some even considered bringing in guns, pipe bombs. There was also a level of coordination between some of the groups that were there, Proud Boys, 3%ers, etc. And so, look, the Justice Department, while they went after those people, and they should, so far, a lot of the people that incited this and may have been involved in planning this, well, they haven't gone after or haven't been able to, pin anything on them yet. So I'm seeing what I've seen from the Justice Department under Merrick Garland right now is not a whole lot. And so I think, I think this case, this is very interesting because what it could do is set a very important precedent that could even affect Donald Trump. And so that's why this is incredibly important. That's why this is very interesting. And also why I'm a little concerned. So I'm concerned because this could be difficult to prove. Now, again, personally, I look at all the stuff that Marjorie Taylor Greene has put out, both Twitter, things on video, and the next segment will go into that. But again, when you consider how fine the line between free speech and incitement is, and the coded language that they often use, and how, generally Republicans, and I think you're pretty well aware of this, a lot of the ads from Republicans are, we're going to fight, we're going to destroy them, we're going to end socialism, and again, a lot of this violent rhetoric could also be interpreted as, it doesn't actually mean a call to violence, even though it very well could be, and could be considered stochastic terrorism. It's very difficult to walk that line. Very, very difficult. And so I don't know how they're going to do it. But before we get to that, let's go to the next video. Here's Maura Fine's opening statement. And I think it's really interesting.
The evidence today does not include surveillance tapes purporting to show that Marjorie Taylor Greene was directing the plotting of the attack. That's not going to happen today. The witness list today does not include a turncoat witness who's going to come and risk their own exposure by testifying that he or she was ordered by Marjorie Taylor Greene to take certain actions in secret. That's not the type of evidence that we are going to present today. Rather, the way that insurrections are organized nowadays is less in uniforms with military hierarchies and chains of command, less with detailed military plans of battle, and more through social media and the mass media. That's the era that we're living in. In many cases, the communications have multiple layers. And anyone who knows a teenager, is a teenager, or knows anyone in their 20s knows that hashtags and memes and ways of communicating among internet subcultures can mean that words that could have one meaning, a benign meaning or even a baffling meaning to large portions of the American public, can carry a very different significance to the people swimming in that particular subculture. So the most important witness today, after Professor Magliocca testifies, the most powerful witness against Marjorie Taylor Greene's candidacy, the most powerful witness in establishing that she crossed the line into engagement of insurrection, is Marjorie Taylor Greene herself.
All right, so now look, again, this is interesting, but I don't know how effective that's going to be. Now, again, I personally have no doubt that she enjoyed the idea of the insurrection, enjoyed watching it happen. I know Donald Trump certainly did from his bunker, and I don't think she has any issues with violence happening to the other side. But again, knowing how a lot of these free speech arguments go, and how difficult it is, of course, to prevent somebody from seeking office under the 14th Amendment. In fact, it's never been done before. And so understand that this has never been enforced. We've never had a trial like this. So this is very unprecedented. I think they would have to have, and maybe we'll see, hopefully we'll see, that them having some proof that Taylor Greene had participated in the rally. She wasn't there physically, and had direct communication with the rioters like Ali Alexander or any of the others that were there, or even tweeting out the location of Nancy Pelosi. Now, one person, Lauren Boebert, was accused of doing that. However, again, just to show you how fine the line really is, now, she had tweeted out that Nancy Pelosi had left the chamber. Now, under this, putting that out alone is not enough to have Lauren Boebert removed from office, at least as far as I can see, because he didn't tweet out her exact location, just the fact that she is not in a current location. So understand that this is how fine this line really is. And so they're going to have to make a really, really good case. And I hope they're able to, because it does set an incredibly important precedent when it comes to people that had participated or had supported the efforts to overturn the election. It's a very, very high bar. Okay. Let's move on. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has taken the stand to answer some questions about her role in the January 6th Capitol riots, and you're not going to be surprised that she can't seem to provide any straight answers.
Ms. Greene, this is a tweet that you sent out on January 2nd, 2021, correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, you don't recall this?
I don't recall tweeting that, no.
Okay. Did anybody in January of 2021 tweet things on your Twitter account without your permission?
On what day?
Any time from November of 2020 to January 6th.
I don't remember. That's difficult to answer.
Okay. You'd be surprised if somebody got into your Twitter account and tweeted something without your permission, wouldn't you?
Well, no one tweeted anything without my permission. I just don't remember who tweeted what.
Did you say these words that are quoted on the bottom of it? Did you say that?
According to the CNN article, I did. I don't remember.
Do you recall saying?
I don't recall saying all of this.
You know Ali Alexander, don't you?
No, I don't really know him, no.
When you say you don't really know him, you've met him, right?
I've seen him before, but I don't know him.
Yeah, how many times have you been in his physical presence, to your knowledge?
I cannot even guess. Hardly any.
10? 20?
No.
Have you shaken his hand?
I've shaken his hand before, yes. I
have
shake hands with pretty much everyone I meet.
Lots of people, right?
No, I shake hands with lots of people. And I have no idea what's going on with my Twitter. Twitter? Do I have a Twitter? I don't know what that is. What is that? I don't remember calling Nancy Pelosi a traitor and saying that what she's doing is punishable by death and liking a post that showed that the only solution to dealing with Nancy Pelosi is a bullet to her head. What? I don't remember any of that stuff. I'm just a rib woman. You know, I'm the weaker sex, and I just don't know anything. That's her entire defense. Again, she had testified repeatedly that she didn't remember or couldn't recall on very basic, straightforward questions. Whether or not she had talked about the January 6th protests with other members of Congress, which she most certainly did, or any of the Stop the Steal organizers before the Capitol riot. In fact, look, it got so bad that the administrative law judge Charles Boudreau agreed to recognize her as a hostile witness. Which, again, makes a lot of sense because she seems very hostile to questions. And of course, her belief in the conspiracy theory that the election was stolen from Trump. So now, either Marjorie Taylor Greene suddenly has the worst memory of Congress, and that's saying something because we have Dianne Feinstein, who literally is mentally declining. She can't remember conversations with people she has had the current day, or even in that legislative session. Or, you know, something else is going on. Now, Greene even dodged questions about how she uses Twitter and Facebook and repeated false claims about voter fraud in the 2020 election. She also testified that she had no expectation of violence on January 6th. In fact, here's what she said. I have never once seen violence from Trump people. The only violence I've ever seen is from Antifa and BLM rallies. BLM rallies, of course, over 90% peaceful. Yes, were there riots? Yes, that had happened. Were there police crackdowns with no violence, or at least with police had actually starting that violence and not having violence from the protesters at first? Yes, that had also happened. Were there instigators, people that would come in and start violence in order to get a police crackdown going? Yes, all of that stuff happened. It was a mess. And so, that's the thing. Here on January 6th, it was also a mess, but a coordinated mess. And so I'm not surprised, though, that she would bring that up to defend herself, because that is the current thinking from the right wing. That is their current defense. Well, deflection. No violence here for Trump supporters. Oh no, I've never seen violence. Well, then you haven't seen any of the numerous videos of Trump supporters starting violence. And again, I'm not saying that Antifa hasn't punched a Nazi. Yes, that video is very, very prolific, and that's been around as well. But what I'm saying is that she's completely ignoring any of the violence on her side, when we on the left, we acknowledge that there has been some violence on our side. And so understand that that's what they're going with. No, we're complete and perfect angels, and it's the left that's the real violence. And by the way, January 6th, they're just tourists. Peaceful protest, or were peaceful protests, but also FBI. Come on, nobody believes that except for brainwashed right-wingers. Now, that said, there are receipts to some of these questions that she could not answer. In fact, I'm going to show you some of that right now.
The second page of the document has a quotation that reads, quote, "All of us together, when we rise up, we can end all of this. We can end it. We can do it peacefully. We can. I hope we don't have to do it the other way. I hope not. but we should feel like we will if we have to, because we are the American people. Do you recall making that statement in 2019 in connection with a protest around Fund the Wall?
No, I don't recall.
Ask Nancy. Go ahead. Next.
Are you denying that you made that statement?
Objection noted.
You denying that you made that statement?
I'm saying I don't recall.
Okay. You're not denying it, you just don't recall.
It's a CNN article.
She said she does not recall. That is the answer. Let's move on.
See, all of us together, when we rise up, we can end all of this. We can end it. We can do it peacefully. We can. I hope it doesn't have to, we don't have to do it the other way. I hope not. But we should feel like we will if we have to, because we are the American people.
Just finished with our meetings here at the White House this afternoon. We had a great planning session for our January 6th objection. We aren't going to let this election be stolen by Joe Biden and the Democrats. President Trump won by a landslide. I cannot certify a stolen election. On January 6th, if you're able, there are going to be possibly 1 million or more people coming to Washington to be there for this historic event. It's critical for everyone to show up and show the nation who we are. The only right thing to do is to stand up and defend the president. And on January 6th, that is exactly what you're going to see us do.
Well, I mean, you showed the nation exactly who you were on January 6th. She was 100% correct about that one. Look, that's just some of the receipts that they have, okay? And I am glad that they've decided to dig up her Twitter history. I know it's not too difficult for them to do. I'm actually quite surprised that she didn't scrub her tweets or her own videos. They're there. They're there. That said, maybe they think, what do we care? We're going to get away with it anyway. And so that gets me concerned about this, right? Because understand that this is a very high bar. And understand that this also could set a major precedent when it comes to Donald Trump, for example, running in 2024. And so this could be the first big case to be adjudicated, at least when it comes to January 6th. And it's very, very important. Very, very important. Because again, you look at the statements that she has made, the tweets that she has made, the videos that she has made on this, and you look at the same thing that Donald Trump had been doing, his statements, his tweets, his videos on it. I mean, that's very, very concerning, right? So much evidence that they have, but with that really high bar, very concerned. Now, the fact that she's also basically refusing to answer any of these questions, and then when she does, she's incredibly vague about it, and even accuses this of being fake news, CNN. Oh, look, it's CNN. That says I did that, but I said that, but I don't remember that. It's CNN anyway. And then the idiots in there. And by the way, I think Matt Gaetz is one of the people that's sitting in the crowd. Applause. Gave her applause. Oh, good job. Good job for dodging that question. Great job. So, look, it does show you that she is in full defense mode. And her strategy is, I don't know, I don't remember, I didn't mean violence. I just called for a peaceful gathering. That's all. I don't know if it's going to work. Now, and I mean the case against her. I always land on these things with a bit of cynicism. As much as I am convinced that she absolutely added to the violence and wanted violence on January 6th and wanted to overthrow the election, whether it be violent or not, I don't think she cared in how it worked or how it happened, as long as people like Trump and her stayed in power. That's all they cared about, right? But I come at this from cynicism, okay? And it's very rare in my, from my experience, to see people who are powerful get held to account. And so, especially when it comes to Republicans, and especially since Marjorie Taylor Greene until recently was hauling in millions of dollars worth of campaign donations. I think that's also very relevant too. So now I'm curious to see what else they have. This continues. I hope that it's going to be enough to prove to a judge that this person, Marjorie Taylor Greene, should not be able to run in her next election because of the aid and comfort that she gave to insurrectionists. But as I said before, I don't know how it's going to go. And my default setting at this point is to expect the worst. So, yeah. All right. Let's go to the king of toxicity. You're going to love this irony. It appears that another pro-Trump personality has been accused of some criminal activity. Now, this time, you may recall Andrew Tate. Now, Andrew Tate is the so-called king of toxic masculinity. Fun. Now, he has been arrested as part of a human trafficking probe in Romania. Now, the former kickboxer's home in Romania was raided after police received reports of an American woman being held against her will. So now a Romanian newspaper reported that the police had found both the American woman and a Romanian woman in the building during a raid. Well, golly gee, very interesting, huh? Who would imagine the king of toxic masculinity found being incredibly toxic? Shocker. Now, according to a report in the Daily Beast, the Voco MAGA promoting Tate cultivated a social media image as a wealthy cigar-smoking playboy. But however, Tate's treatment of women had an ugly side. The report states in 2016, he was kicked off the British version of Big Brother over a video of him hitting a woman with a belt. Well, I'm sure he thought, no, I'm just being assertive. I'm just being an alpha male. Because, you don't want to be a beta male. Beta male. No, you don't want to do that. Real men hit women with belts. Really? No, they don't. No, they don't. Now, this March, Britain's Daily Mirror tabloid also profiled him and his brother Tristan Tate and their Romanian-based business, which used webcam models to trick men. So this guy is, so-called defender of men, right, and masculinity, tricking men into sending them tens of thousands of dollars. Right. Now, in one video on his YouTube channel, Tate said that 40% of the reason that he moved to Romania was because Romanian police, he believed, were less likely to pursue sexual assault allegations. Why would you just say that? Would you just come up and admit that? Like, oh yeah, like almost half the reason I moved to Romania is because they won't come after me for the crimes that I'm going to do. And you thought that was smart. I mean, it's just an amazing, yeah, I think Romanian concerts is as sexist as I am. They're never going to come after me for sexual assault. No, I can do it all I want. Well, apparently they can and will come after you for human trafficking. Again, they're accused of holding someone hostage in his house. And that probe, by the way, started off just as allegations of him allegedly holding a woman hostage, but as the probe continued, it escalated to include the trafficking and rape. So that comes from a statement from Romania's Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism. So that kind of shows you who this guy is. But if you're not convinced yet, let me give you a quote here that he had said. After the Harvey Weinstein revelations, he tweeted, quote, and this is very, very relevant, I think, to this case, "If you put yourself in a position to be raped, you must bear some responsibility." This guy who's accused of imprisoning someone in his home illegally and then of sexual assault and rape, he's coming out, basically he's like, oh, that's your fault. What, is she holding herself hostage in your house? Is that what she's doing? No, it's you. You're holding her hostage. That's all you, dog. Allegedly, of course. Wow. But no, let's get to some, by the way, I mentioned these pro-Trump, very right-wing, because obviously, well, here's some links, okay? He has palled around with Jack Posobiec and an InfoWar host, Paul Joseph Watkins, and has appeared numerous times on InfoWar shows. Now, he also, in Trump's Washington hotel, Tate posed for a picture with Nigel Farage, great, and sat in a group in the Trump hotel lobby with Pizzagate conspiracy theorist Mike Cernovich and future January 6th protest organizer Ali Alexander. And so, a nice little right-wing circle of just horrible people. Cernovich also had visited the Tate brothers in Romania later that year, describing them as his friends, good friends, in the description of his podcast. Now, I wonder, during the time that Cernovich had visited, was anybody being held hostage in that home? Now, certainly if that had happened, Cernovich, who accuses people of pedophilia and being groomers and, again, people on the left and all that stuff, and of course, spreading conspiracy theories about child trafficking, I wonder if he would have said something about there being a woman being trafficked in Tate's home. Had he noticed, we don't know if he was, if that had happened at that time during that trip. But had it happened, I'm curious whether or not Cernovich would have actually said something about it. I mean, honestly, like, are you not a defender of freedom? Are you not against traffickers? Or are only certain people worthy of your personal freedom? I'm just asking because as of right now, Cernovich hasn't made a statement. In fact, none of these people have said anything about this except for Tate, who, by the way, Tate, after his arrest, posted a picture on Instagram showing him smoking a cigar, of course, in a staged interrogation room as so-called police officers loomed over him, and then added a caption saying, quote, "Officer, I think we can all agree that bitches love to lie." Now, of course, he's blaming the woman allegedly held, imprisoned in his home. Oh, no, bitches be lying. Bitches be lying. No, you be bitches, okay? Because you're the one who's lying. Now, the one thing, of course, this guy is not lying about is, well, about himself. When he refers to himself as the king of toxic masculinity. Hey, well, I agree with that. Very honest with himself and with everyone else. Yes, you absolutely are toxic. And when somebody tells you who and what they are, well, I mean, maybe you should believe them. I certainly do. All right. Well then. Damn, was that a fast show? Whew. All right, so before I go, I got a lot of super chats to get through. Thank you very, hey, wait a minute. Thank you very much for all the donations. Very, very kind of you. So let's go through. I'm going to read some of these super chats. First, I want to thank Dango Bango for becoming a member. Thank you. You can become a member by hitting the join button below. If you're on YouTube, you can become a subscriber on Facebook as well. And using your Amazon Prime if you're on Twitch. So that's another way to help us out as well. Virginia Thomas, aka Ice Dragon, says, my mom passed that test after 2 strokes in her late 80s. She thought there was something wrong with them because they kept repeating the question. Okay. And yet Donald Trump bragging about it. Oh, nobody can answer that question. A lot of geniuses would have a lot of problems. But I didn't have any problems because I'm very, very smart.
I'm cognitively there.
I'm cognitively there.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
Oh, God, I can never remember that. Man, Trump can because he's a genius. Incredible. Torn Tokoro says, I hereby advocate for funding of Cyborg Bernie. Tango Bangle says, Super Giant Mecha Bernie Kaiju Fighter the show. If any of you haven't already seen it, there is a Bernie anime. Not an anime, like it's an anime opening, and I thought this is really fun. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Spin Me a Sale Cost says, Jeff, we have the technology and it's called biomechatronics. Want to really help the veterans? Donate to Disabled American Veterans Charity. Stacy Wilson, much love to you in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, much love to the chat as well. And Gabby Mathis, thank you for the $5. Have a great, safe weekend, everybody. Thank you as well. Let's go over here to the Twitch community. That was a hype train. Nice. 3 gifted subs. So I want to thank, let's see, Toolman Tim 51, for resubbing with Prime. Happy to give my Bezos bucks to Jeff. Always look forward to the show. Broke my arm last month that it wouldn't heal because of tumors. I'm so sorry. Oof. Had radiation treatment. My arm is getting better. Well, it's good to see that things are getting better for you. And again, I wish you all the best in your treatments, and I hope that you recover quickly and recover well. Ravaging Wolverine, thank you for resubbing for Prime, for 18 months. 18 months, Ravaging Wolverine. You're amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. And by the way, Toolman Tim, thank you for the 9 months as well. Really appreciate that. Occam's Taser, thank you for gifting a community sub to I can't see who you gave that to, but Tempo Dan 918, thank you for gifting a tier month sub to Fat Guy Named Tiny. I love the name. Great handle. I enjoy it. All right. Let's see. SBloom85, thank you for resubbing for 17 months with Prime. Really appreciated it as well. Am I going to play Rust tonight with TYT for Game Busters? I never get invited to that. They don't invite me to Game Busters. I don't know why. Weird. So I'll just probably play some Elden Ring. Yes, I've beaten Elden Ring already. I am trying different builds. I am obsessed. And I can't help it. But I have beaten it now. So Elden Beast. I came, I saw, I conquered. And I got the sword, which is pretty awesome. So no, I don't get invited to these. I would if somebody would invite me. That would be super nice. But unfortunately, nobody loves me over there. So sad, baby. All right. Anyway, yes, I'm an Elden Lord. That's right. It's true. All right. So I'm also I'm not bad at Rust. But I remember playing it with Tiffany. I don't know if you remember her. Tiffany hates that game, by the way. She's like, I hate Rust. It's terrible. Even getting thirsty kills you. Okay. I don't know. I'm okay with it. I like survival games. I like tacos. So I'll do it. Still got to buy Elden Ring. I would, if you like Souls-like, and if you like open world, definite recommend. Anyway, let's see. Oh man, Jenna Ellis speaking out against Ron DeSantis. What is going on here? I'm going to have to talk about that on Monday. All right. Anyway, have a great weekend. Thank you all, everybody. Please have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. relax a little bit if you can. Have fun and stay safe. And we'll see you back here on Monday. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See y'all later.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Every goddamn thing out of you people's mouths doesn't come true.
There's insanity in the control room.
How you like that, boy?
Mike Pence.
Disappointed!
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.